Hello guys, today I come again with a new topic in SuccessFactors as usual, and today we are going to discuss, as you already seen from the thumbnail, that dynamic role and dynamic group, which is one of the very popular topic in SuccessFactors and very commonly used. So I have already received a lot of requests from you guys that to prepare a new video on the workflows. So here it is. Also, I have prepared a couple of workflow videos. You can check it from my previous uploads. You can find my previous uploaded videos from the playlist called SuccessFactors in my channel. You can get the playlist details in the top right corner here. You can find on one eye icon. If you click on the eye icon, you can find my playlist there that is called SuccessFactors, and you can find all my previous uploaded videos. Hope those will be helpful to you. So please keep watching those videos as well. So now coming to our today's topic, but before proceeding, I'd like to request everyone, please pause your video for a while, hit the red subscribe button if you have not subscribed my channel yet, and also don't forget to hit the like icon if you like the video, and you can provide your comments as well in the comment section, and you can propose what the new topics on which you need me to prepare the videos. I'll definitely prepare the videos on those topic in future. Now, coming to our topics today, dynamic role versus dynamic growth. So specifically, we are going to discuss today uh, what is the dynamic role and dynamic group as workflow approvers. So basically, we are going to discuss today as a workflow approvers, what are the functionality of these two, and what is the main difference between these two, because a lot of people have lot of confusions between these dynamic role and dynamic group concept. So today we are going to trying to just clear out this concept with some good examples as well as usual. So let's go to our next slide. First of all, we need to check what is the involvement of workflow participants on these two functionalities, dynamic group and dynamic role. So let's pick up first dynamic group. So as we know, in SF workflow definitions, there are 5 participants available. One is initiator, second is subject user, third is approver, then also available contributors and CC roles. We are mainly discussing on these 3 participants today, because we are going to discuss basically on the approver part, because dynamic role and dynamic group are related directly to the approvers. So now initiator means the person who is making some transactions, who is basically initiating the workflow by making some changes on some employees data. Based on that, our business tool will pick up and trigger the workflow. So the person who is making that changes is the initiator. He or she is the initiator. Subject user, on which employee that changes are made, for which the workflow triggers, that employee is called the subject user. And approver obviously means after the workflow is initiated, it reaches to some person or group of person who will decide, who will take the decision what should be that workflow should be either approved or rejected or need to be sent back. So those set of person are called the approvers. Now what do we mean by dynamic group specifically? So in a workflow, if your requirement is no, you don't want to set on a single person as the approver of your workflow, you want multiple person, a set of person as a workflow, then you need to go for the dynamic group. So dynamic group is nothing but a set of people who are means defined within a logical group, and that group is assigned to some workflows definition. So that is called the dynamic group. Now, in building or selecting or choosing the dynamic group, what are the roles of these workflow participants? Initiator, it has no role in deciding or choosing or building the dynamic groups. Means initiator can be anybody, and means it has no impact in dynamic group selection. Subject user, the same also, it has no impact in dynamic group building or choosing or preparing. Approver, obviously it is related to the approvers, so approvers is has direct impact on the dynamic group building or preparing. So how it is, let me just give you one example. Suppose in an organization, the scenario is when employees going to apply some comp off, or some manager of that employee or whoever the other on behalf of employee going to apply some comp off, compensatory off, then that leave application should reach to the departmental heads for approval. Now in ASAP, we cannot find, now the departmental head is not a single person for that organization. Multiple persons can be there as a departmental head. So what we need to do for this kind of requirements, we need to prepare one dynamic group. In that group, we'll set up those specific users who are called the departmental head of that organization. We can put those set of users in that dynamic group, and we can assign that dynamic group in the workflow definition. Now, the thing is, suppose the initiator is employee X and subject user is employee A. So employee X is applying the comp of on behalf of subject user employee A. In that case, whatever the workflow is raising, that will go to that departmental head as in for approving the workflow. Now employee Y also raising the workflow, also going to apply the comp off for another employee called employee B. So employee Y is going to apply comp off on behalf of employee B. In that case also the same workflow will trigger and it will reach the same set of users, means departmental heads. So here we cannot specify that if employee X, if the workflow is going to be raised for employee A, it should reach some specific set of employee, means though it can be the departmental heads, but that department should be uh, called sales department. Only it will reach the same sales department, or if the employee B belongs to manufacturing department, then in that case the workflow should reach to the manufacturing department heads. That we cannot define within a single workflow. We cannot define that. If you want, we can create the multiple workflows and then we can trigger that via a business tool with multiple workflows. But within a single workflow, we cannot define that because dynamic group doesn't depends on the initiator or subject user. So whoever the initiator, whoever the subject user, always it will reach the same set of approvers. We cannot define that. Now, of dynamic role. So in dynamic role, we can apply such kind of filters based on the subject users. So in dynamic role as well, same as the dynamic group, there is no direct involvement in the initiator field. But in subject user, obviously this is the key input in dynamic role determination basically. So subject user has direct involvement in dynamic role determination or building, and approver, obviously approver will have direct involvement in dynamic role determination. Now, if we extend in our previous example, uh, so employee X belongs to India. Employee is the Indian employee. So when one Indian employee is going to apply any comp off, then that comp off application, whatever the workflow will be raised due to that comp off application, that should reach to the departmental heads of Indian employee. Now employee Y belongs to Australia. Now if any Australian employee going to raise any workflow or going to raise any comp of, due to that the workflow is going to be raised. So in that case the workflow should reach to the departmental heads of Australia. So this kind of filtration based on some field like Indian Australia we have defined. So how we can build that? We can build it via dynamic rule. And dynamic rule always we can apply this filter based on the subject users field. There are a lot of filter criteria already provided in dynamic role. Based on that, we can define which set of approvers should be picked up for that specific set of subject users. So we can apply it. For that requirement, we need to place the legal entities. Suppose Indian legal entity filter is already there, we can place it. So based on that, we can set Indian departmental heads, one set of dynamic group, and for Austrian legal entities we can place in dynamic role, and for that we can set the approvers as Australian departmental heads. So this is how we can manage that requirement using the dynamic role. So uh, this is the concept between this is the dynamic group and dynamic role, and this is the basic difference. So if we want any filtration in terms of choosing the appropriate approvers, you need to go with the dynamic role. And if there is no such requirement, means uh, whoever the initiator or subject user is, you want the workflow should reach to some constant specific set of employees only, then you should go with the dynamic group. Now let's move on to our third slide. There we will talk about some exceptions and auto replacements. What are those? So the logic is skip step and auto uh, replacement. That is the topic actually. So there in ASAP there are already some skip step and auto replacement logic already inbuilt in SF. What are those? Let's discuss first the dynamic group. So in dynamic group, if the initiator and the step approver both are same and both belongs to the dynamic group, in that case, the workflow does not skip or stop, because in dynamic group also there are other approvers can be there. So they can approve though that workflow. That's why it is not restricted or stopped or skipped as well. So workflow can be raised and the other members of the dynamic group, they can approve that. But what if in the dynamic group only one approver and that approver is the initiator, then also the workflow will raise and reach to that particular approver. Second point is subject user is all and the approval are the same and both belongs to the dynamic group or only, I mean both are the member of the dynamic group. In that case, approver is changed to the subject users manager automatically. You no need to do anything. That is the setting is already inbuilt in SF. Now talking about dynamic role. First point is, so in dynamic role, let me just tell you, we can set three type of approvers. One is person. That means if you want to set in dynamic role, one single person is the approver. You can set it as well. And the second is dynamic group, and third is position. So the first point is when the approver type is person and the initiator and step approver are the same, means the person who is initiating the workflow, he is also the same person who is assigned to that particular workflow's definition in the dynamic role as a approver. So in that case, what will happen? Workflow is skipped or stopped. Means workflow will not raised in that case. Workflow, you will see the pop-up workflow is raised, but basically you cannot find that workflow in the workflow request tool itself. Second point is approver type equals to person, means the single person is the approver and the subject user and step approver are the same person. So in that case, also the approver is changed automatically to the subject user's manager. Third point is when the approver type is dynamic group, not the person. That means here multiple person are the approvers. A set of people are the approvers. So in that case, if initiator and or subject user uh, uh, or both are equals to step user, means initiator and subject user, initiator and approver are same, or the subject user and approver are the same. In that case, also workflow will not skip because there are other members available in that set of dynamic group who can approve that workflow. That's why. So these are the exceptional case, and for these already SAP already built this replacement logic for those. Now let's go to the system and try to check the hands-on demo. So I have logged into the instance now, SAP instance. So first we are trying to create a dynamic a workflow here, and our scenario is for any employee, if the base salary is getting changed, one workflow should trigger. That is our scenario. So in this workflow definition, so workflow definition you can find in manage organization pay and job structure. Because workflow is a foundation object, it is not moved yet to the MDF. It is still available in the corporate data model. That's why you need to maintain it via manage organization PM job structure. So here you need to build the workflow. I have already built a workflow, just trying to make some changes. So first step approver I am setting as dynamic group. So let us create one dynamic group first. To create the dynamic group also we need to go to manage workflow, dynamic workflow groups. It is quite similar to the permission groups as well. We need to create one group here. I'm putting the name as test dy group, and I'm putting, so here why actually it's called dynamic group, because if we choose, suppose you can define this based on some relationship as well, like if you defined as job information company and you define the company as 8500, whatever it is, you can some define some company as well. So in that case, suppose one employee now belongs to this company, that employee can be the approver of this particular workflow. But after 2 days, that employee leaves that or means transferred to another company that is not equals to 8500, then the workflow will not reach to that particular employee for approving purpose. But another employee who just joined in this particular company 8500, then that workflow will reach to that particular employee dynamically. So these if we define this group based on this dynamic relation in this based on these relationships, so dynamically the uh, workflow will identify those set of users during the workflow. When the workflow will be initiated dynamically, it will happen. That's why these groups are called dynamic groups. So here I'm putting some set of specific users, not the dynamic typical dynamic groups. Usernames I'm just putting M of Faye. Okay, so couple of users I have added as an approver. So test dynamic group is created. Here two users are added, uh, Markov and Carla Grant. Okay, now let's assign these to our groups. I need to refresh the page again. Dynamic group, test dynamic group I have added there, and as a second level approval always it is assigned the manager will be the second level approval. Now saving this, is saved now. Now we have already defined one set of business tool to trigger this workflow. The business rule is set in employees comp info, because our scenario is to trigger uh, this workflow based on the salary change. So here is the business tool. I have written this business tool to trigger the workflow. Just opening the business tool. Yeah, So here is the business tool I have written to trigger the workflow. The salary change workflow is set and the event reason is annual salary review. Now let's test it. So I'm opening one employee, John Harrelson, and for this employee I'm going to make some salary change. Go to action, go to comp info portlet, uh, putting some dates, and going to make some change the existing salary and saving it. So you can see the workflow is getting triggered. Now who are the approvers? The approver is first level approver is, you can see Markov and Carla Grant that we have set as a dynamic group. So multiple users are the first step 1 approver of this workflow, and step 2 approver is the employees manager. Now second test scenario is when the initiator and the step approver both belongs to same dynamic group, both are same and both belongs to same dynamic group, then what will happen? Okay, to check that, let me make some little adjustment in the dynamic group. Let me add my id itself as an approver. So I'm adding my id, saving it. So right now there are 3 approvers: Carla Grant, Markov, and Anasi, my id, that is. Now I'm going to initiate the same workflow for the same scenario. Let's check the approvers. You can see when the now I am the initiator itself and I am also belonging to the dynamic group. So in that case, workflow doesn't skip, doesn't stop, workflow execute as it is. Okay, now the third scenario is when the step approver and the subject user both are same and both belongs to the dynamic group. So in that case, to check that, let me try to initiate some workflow based on Markov. Okay, let's go to Markov's profile and making some changes, and making the salary change, and trying to save it. Workflow initiated were the participants. Now watch it carefully. Who are the approvers? Markov itself belongs to that particular group, but as the Markov is itself the subject user, so that's why Markov is not here. Instead of Markov, the approver is really Francis, and really is the manager of Mark. So these auto replacement is done automatically by SF. You no need to do anything when the step approver and subject user both are same and both belongs to the same dynamic group as the approver. So it is tested successfully. Now coming to our next scenario, dynamic role. Now changing this workflow, I'm setting dynamic role here. Let's create one dynamic role first. Dynamic role is also a foundation object, that's why you need to create in the manager pay and job structure. Dynamic role. So here let's put the here you can see multiple fields are available where you can use it as filter. So I'm using the legal entity as the filter here. So I'm putting if the legal entity is 1710, then the approver will be, here you can see three types of approvers are available. Person, that means a single person will be the approver. Dynamic group, that set of user can be approver. And position, that means based on that position, whoever the person will occupy that position, the workflow will reaches to them, reaches to that person as an for approving purpose. So I'm choosing person first, and here I'm just putting the approver as John Parker. Okay. Now for another employee 850 legal entity 8500, if employee belongs to this legal entity, then the approver type should be dynamic group, and that should be our already created dynamic group. Let's save it. Now just need to assign this dynamic group here. Workflow definition, assigned it, save it. Dynamic role is assigned now. Now it's time for testing. Let's go to John Huddleston, who belongs to that particular legal entity 1710. What is the legal entity of this person? Let's confirm it again, 1710. So here the first filter we have set, that is 1710, then below then the approver is John Parker person. Let's see if it really works like that or not. Trying to make some salary change. Okay. Yeah, now the workflow comes, and you can see John Parker is the step 1 approver, and John Williams, who is the manager, step 2 approver. So as a part of step 1, we have assigned dynamic role as an approver, and we have set John Parker as a person. That's why John Parker comes here. Now second scenario in dynamic role, if the initiator and the approver are the same, then what will happen? So to do that, let me again go to the dynamic role definition, and I'm changing this approver to my ID, SF admin, saving it. Now comes again and try to save the data for the same employee, John Harrelson. Now see, first step is skipped here. So when the initiator and step approver are the same, and in dynamic role the step approver is set as person, not group, so in that case that step will be skipped. So only manager, means second step is coming here, only first step is skipped. Now coming to the third scenario, when the step approver and the subject user are the same. So in that case, what will happen? So in that case, I'm not going to show that right now here to save the time. In that case, your approver will automatically will be changed to manager. As you already seen in the dynamic group, what happened, automatically the approver is replaced to the subject users manager. That will happen in this case as well. Now testing our another fourth scenario, that is when we need to choose some employee who belongs to another legal entity called 8500, that is Mark. Okay, yes, this employee also belongs to 8500. So let's try to make some change in that employee salary. So you can see the same workflow we have just registered in the workflow definition, but here the legal entity is different for this employee. So in that case, what will happen? We have already set a different set of approver for this legal entity. Let's check if that workflow, no, if the particular approvers will appear in the workflow approvers or not. Uh, yes, workflow appears. So, so instead of only one person, here the dynamic group is appearing as the workflow, and you can see Mark Hoppe, Carla Grant, and Singh is the first step approval, which comes from the dynamic group, and the second step approval is the William Dart. So this is also tested successfully. So hope you enjoy this video, and you the concept between this dynamic group and dynamic role is bit clear now. So keep watching, happy learning, and please don't forget to subscribe my channel and help to share my channel as more as you can, and post your comments and hit the like buttons if you really like this video. Thank you all.